Hey everybody, welcome to part 5 in this what's going to be a long series because there was a lot of stuff that I purchased out of this estate. So this was still, this is still going to be from the first trip out there. There was a large industrial drill press there, an early one, Swiss made, and I can't remember the name on it, but it was a monster. It was heavy. And this again is basement, and it was going to be, I mean, my back hurt just looking at this thing. So I flirted with the idea of making an offer on it and quickly came to my senses. So when I initially got there, they had mentioned there was a tall metal cabinet in back of the drill press, and they had mentioned that the items in the cabinet went with the drill press. So I first didn't bother looking in there because I figured, well, I'm not going to be a player on the drill press, so I won't bother. But then, as the day went on and I bought more material, I inquired about, you know, items in the cabinet if I could take a look. I took a look in there, and it turns out, yeah, they were willing to do a deal on the stuff in the cabinet. So I ended up cutting a deal. I saw a few items in there I liked, and then finally I just decided, you know what? Why don't I just take all the items in the cabinet? And it ended up becoming a sticking point at one point about whether or not I wanted to pay them a certain amount for the cabinet with the contents. Finally, I told them, I said, "Look, I'll tell you what, I'll settle on the $80 that we agreed to for the contents in the cabinet, and they can keep the cabinet." And it's ironic because I could have had the cabinet, I think, for another $25 at that point. And the reason why I say it's ironic is because when I went back on consecutive trips, I eventually ended up buying the cabinet anyways. So you'll see that in a future episode. So it's kind of funny. It was funny to me. All right, so I'm going to show you what was in that cabinet. It was a lot of metal, basically. Not metal. A lot of heavy items, I guess, and some of them I just took because they were in there, and some of them might end up being, kind of gems. I mean, yeah, a couple of them definitely are. There were a couple of items I zeroed in on in there that I said, oh yeah, oh that's good, and then there was some stuff in there. It's like, oh okay, I'm just gonna make it a package deal with these guys. So that's what ended up happening. So let's jump right into this. So at this point, I had been moving a little more quickly because I was running out of time. So I ended up cutting the deal and on all this stuff and pulled all this stuff out of the cabinet. And I'll be quite honest, I didn't even notice when I was loading this into the truck. I still didn't even notice that this XY table is not very useful because it's missing the entire lead screw plate that goes here and handle. It's basically the jibs are tight, so that's what keeps this from moving in this axis at all. And it's really just a table that's good for just going in two directions. Pretty much a useless piece of junk, in my opinion. Another item in the cabinet was this speed handle. I recognize this as a speed handle for a vise. It's similar to the one on my Curt vise, but my Curt vise has 4 handles and says Curt on it. And this speed handle looks just like a Palmgren speed handle that I've seen on eBay. And I did have another speed handle, I think, that I ended up actually selling on eBay at some point. And if I recall correctly, I think I got like I don't know, $30 for it or something like that. So this vise was in there, but it's got a smaller. It's too small for that. And this handle was in there, and this handle is missing this piece, but I think I may have found this in a box later. It's got 2 stops, adjustable stops on it. I had this listed in my notes just so I could keep track of things as an unknown vise because I don't know if you can see, but this is clearly the data plate for this vise, and it's completely been cleaned to the point where everything is removed from it, so I have no idea who makes this vise. It does have, I'll tell you, it's got the mottled green paint that to me screams either import or possibly pomegranate. And it's got the similar colored paint, but you got these two stops that are interesting. I have one like this already that I think will fit my Curt vise. But looking down in here, I don't see any of the boo-boos that you tend to see when somebody does a big boo-boo on the vise. Although the top, yeah, right here, the top of this jaw, we get a little bit of a milling mark right there, and a very light one over here on this side. Yeah, we had some people that, a couple of boo-boos there. But nothing really major wrong with this little vise, so seems pretty decent. There might be a casting number on the bottom that would tell us who makes this. Or there might be somebody watching right now who's going to tell me. Oh yeah, okay, on this color, on this side you can see there's a lot of the paint left. So that's that texture, almost like an alligator texture to it. And that color. I think I've seen pomegranate vises with that color, but then again, it might just be import. And then there's a primer color underneath here of red. And what they did on the bottom here, it looks like they just primed it. And then the hole here, which is supposed to be for the pivot point for the swivel base, if it had one, is filled with waxy something in there. But anyways, does this look familiar to anybody out there? Anybody recognize this vise? It's a nice little size, and what I mean by that is it's, well, I guess you'd call this a 4-inch vise, even though it's actually measuring like 4 3/16. And so the next one, there's no denying the pedigree on this one, stamped right in the side. Old Curt vise, and this has still got the original placard here to tell me the model. This looks like it's a model 3600V. It's got a serial number on it, 010009. Versatile lock, precision machine vise. It is a precision machine vise. These are very nice vises. Most of you guys probably already know that. The speed handle that I found in there does in fact fit this vise. So the good news is that this is a Curt vise. The bad news is that this vise has seen some abuse. Somebody really buggered this thing. The big old drill bit there. Drilling, mostly drilling. Poorly done, stupid mistakes with the drill bits. So that's the bad news. The good news is the jaws themselves are in great shape, and these other parts of the vise look like they're in pretty decent shape. So it's still a usable vise. And my first thought was, hey, I'm gonna sell that one because I got my Curt vise over there on the milling machine. There's my Curt over there. But I was just talking the other day, telling a guy I know who's a machinist for a living, and talking about the score on this stuff, and I'm probably going to end up selling some of it. And he pointed out, he says, nah, it's nice to have two of them. Sometimes you want to set up two of them on the mill for a long piece to clamp it in place. So at the moment, I haven't decided the fate of this vise. Another item in this cabinet caught my eye was this here, and I first looked at it, I was like, oh, look at that cast iron surface plate. Well, son of a gun, if I don't pull it out, take a look and see, that's no surface plate. It's a big old lapping plate. 14 inches by just over 10 inches. That's now quite a bit larger than I've got a little lapping plate I got at an estate sale. It's only about that big. So, lapping plate. And for anybody who's wondering, I do not see any markings to indicate who may have made this. So I don't think we'll ever know who made that. Now you can see why I said the cabinet was mostly metal. What I meant, it's mostly heavy items, which, by the way, is a testament to the strength of the shelves in that cabinet, which, like I said, we'll see at some point. So next, laying on the shelf, found this thing, pulled it out, took one look at it, and went, oh, okay. And I was trying to jog my memory, and I think what I ended up finally remembering is that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this would be called a mini pallet. But it's not very mini. Keith Rucker did a series on making a mini pallet, which is basically a metal plate with equidistantly spaced threaded holes that you can use little small hold downs, and basically it's for holding in place small pieces on your milling table, on your milling machine, that would otherwise be awkward to hold in your vise, because maybe they're not very thick and you can't really grab onto them well with the jaws and still have enough of it protruding above the jaws to safely do an operation that you need to do. So this definitely, I'm glad I saved this, because this was going to go to the scrapyard. So this thing is 1 foot square, and it has holes that appear to be exactly 1 inch on center, a bazillion of them, and every single one of these holes is drilled and tapped. And then there's actually a couple extras on the end here. But so that, I am definitely going to keep that. I think that is something that might come in handy on the milling machine. There is some surface rust and spots, but for the most part, it's in great shape. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm on a pick like this, you can't help but get a little hot and bothered as soon as you spot a box like this. Ooh, there's got to be something great in there, right? Well, yes and no. A really pretty lapping plate. I don't know much about it, but this thing, it looks pristine. This one, the working area on this one measures 9 inches by just under a foot. No, what is a foot? 9 by 12. So this is a 9 by 12 lapping plate that somebody took the time. I don't think this is the original box. It could be, I guess. But somebody definitely took care of this one. They even got this little piece of thin foam pad that they glued in the top here. I kind of wanted to take this out just to see if I could see if there was a maker on it somewhere. But I think I might just leave it in there. I don't know squat about lapping, but I do know, until I know for sure whether or not I am going to do any lapping, I'm going to hold on to these lapping plates. You know, I don't even know that last one. Maybe because maybe that condition that that's in is too far gone to even make it useful. I don't know. I mean, when I compare it to what this looks like, seems possible. Okay, we're almost done with this cabinet lot. Next up is this nice angle plate. This is a magnetic angle plate, and unfortunately, it's got this surface rust on it here. It was on something that was trapped moisture and left these lines on it, so it has to be cleaned up, and then I don't know what's going to happen to the accuracy once that's done. But what's really cool about this is, and if you follow Tubal Cain's auction episodes, this is Taft-Pierce, and this is really nice stuff. And this one was made right one state over from me in the state of Rhode Island. So really, even in the condition it's in, I'm happy with that little score. Now, I don't have a surface grinder, so I don't really know how practical this thing's going to be for me, but I don't think I want to necessarily give it up, because I don't know whether or not I might at some point decide to invest in a surface grinder, a small one for down here. And the last of what was in that cabinet lot are these three little boxes here. This one's got a Morse tapered slitting saw, high-speed steel. This is marked Union. Okay. Well, it's got staggered tooth. So this is 4 by 0.187. So I guess it's a 4-inch diameter cutter that can cut a slot 187 thousandths wide. Problem is, I'd have to use an R8 to Morse taper adapter to use that in my mill, and I don't have a horizontal mill, which is what this is really probably made for. So that's going to go in a pile of cutters I have that someday hopefully somebody with a horizontal mill will take off my hands. The problem is, there's plenty of guys out there I know I can set up with these things, including Keith Rucker down there, but he's got so much stuff now. I don't know if he even needs anything else. And the other problem is the shipping. It's the damn shipping on this stuff kills you. That's why this stuff makes it tough, to do anything with on eBay. This is an interesting. Oh my, what the heck's going on here? Somebody brazed a bunch of chunks of. Oh boy, I can't even begin to describe this cutter to you guys. This is clearly made to do some kind of a funky profile, or knock the corners or edges off of something. Let's just move on. Another one of these deals here where these big chunks of carbide are just tapped into these slots, and they're basically just clamped in there, the clamping force. And that's a big ass. I do have an adapter, an R8 adapter that will actually probably take this diameter, but I don't even know if that's practical for my mill. Look at this one, another one. Man, these cutters these are some scary looking things. One of these days maybe I'll have to just do a video on playing around with some of those things and wasting metal. But what I did like was nice old, oh, look at that. What the hell did somebody do? They ground a flat on here maybe so that a locking screw, grub screw, could grab onto this to keep it from spinning maybe? I don't know. That's a shame. Until somebody did that, this was a unmolested drill bit. China high-speed steel. It doesn't look like they really wasted a really good high-end drill. Oh, there you go. Now this is old steel. I bet you that's a nice old one there. Not going to bother cleaning it up to see. But that's sharp. Dummy. Now that's an interesting cutter. Might be able to use that. I think I've got some of those already. Look at this. Is this a Deming drill? I mean, is it conceivable that this really started its life out this short? Or is this something that started out much bigger and has just been ground to hell? Furthermore, do you think that might have spun in the truck? Look at that. The metal's piled up in a big glob right there. This must have been a hell of a thing to get out of. Well, that's pretty much... I think that can go in the scrap pile. But, looky here. Now we're getting into something interesting to me. Let me grab all of these, including this nut. What do we have here? A little diamond wheel. And these actually also look like diamond wheels to me. There's a little narrow one there. Diamond. Pretty sure these are all diamond. This one is the only one that's marked definitively with some numbers. I don't want to get too hung up on this. It makes these videos too long when I start doing this. I don't know. This is Clipper, maybe, has a brand name on it. Who knows? Don't care right now. All I care about is the fact that I got a little stack of wheels that I bet you went on that Hammond grinder at some point. All right, the rest of this box is drill bits, which I've probably done drill bits to death at this point. And then this one, another cutter, funkified cutter here. If Rick James was a milling cutter, this is what he would look like. I take that back. Maybe this one here. Then this little box was in there with some sort of mystery collets that I don't identify, and I was like, well, I'm not even going to look at them really closely because I know that. Oh, I don't want to touch that. I already looked at what this was. This is a medium grit diamond wheel cleaning stick, brand new, unused. So it's nice and pretty and white. So I don't want to touch it with these grubby hands. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 collets, different sizes. And I, for the life of me, have no idea what these are. So, guys, Greg, you watching this? Look at these things. So they don't appear to have any taper to them. They appear to be slotted so that what ends up happening, I think, is something probably pushes on this point right here when you lock these in and squeezes this down and closes the collet. So if I can identify these collets, I'm sure, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I'm sure I could sell them on eBay. It's like, no, not necessarily. They could be some arcane collet that nobody uses anymore. Which that reminds me, wait till you see some stuff I got coming up. Oh, anyway, so there's oh wait, this one might be marked with something here. This one's marked NPT, but I can almost guarantee you that that doesn't stand for National Pipe Thread. Yet this one's unmarked, so different brands, it looks like, mixed in here, possibly, of the same type of collet. There must be some kind of holder that these go in. Let's check in this box right here that was in the cabinet and see if we can't find something that might answer the mystery. This big honkin' holder is in here. But well, actually that does fit, but does that make sense? Would you do that? Why bother? Because if I insert this at the, I'm pretty sure this is a big end mill holder. I mean a big end mill holder. And when I say big, I mean as in 1.5 inches. It's an 1.5 inch bore, and the two grub screws, the two muddy grub screws to hold this thing, to hold that end mill from spinning. You put a big old end mill in there that's got a flat on the side of the shank, and this is a Falcon Falcon FW01, Falcon FH01 4M24. That's probably a number 4 Morse taper. Oh, look at that pretty on this brass part right here. It's marked Falcon and pretty. Oh, what do we got? Germany? Falcon Tool Company. Oh, methinks this is for coolant. This turns separate of this, and I think there's a line would hook onto here with coolant, and you must put the kind of end mills that have the holes in them, that the flood coolant system or whatever you call it there. Oh, that might be valuable to somebody, not me. I don't know what to do with it. But that doesn't answer the mystery of these. This looks like another one of those Rick James cutters that at some point maybe was sharpened, and so they got the coating on it to protect it. And part of me wants to see what it looks like, but part of me is like, no, leave that alone. Oh, I think I found something. I think I'm onto something here. Beaver Tool and Engineering Corporation, number 2. This is a Morse taper to some sort of quick release system. And guess what? There's a bar on the side here that when you pull this up, it engages something. I think we winner chicken dinner maybe. Let's see. Methinks that if I put this, no, I got excited for nothing. Man, I don't really feel like a dummy. It's not even close to fitting. That's a shame because this is clearly a quick release tool for something that I didn't find any of the pieces that fit this. That's a bummer. I can see that was the last hope in the box here for fitting those collets. So those collets are orphans. And then there's this thing here, which I can see. All right, we get the slot here to knock out a Morse taper. So this must be a Morse taper to what? The hell is this? I can't find one number or word or letter printed on this thing anywhere, which is kind of disconcerting. I really was hoping I would find something that would tell me something about what this is. I mean, that looks... All right, hopefully you guys at home can see this. All right, the battery's dying. Anybody recognize that? And the last two items, a vise handle marked USA. May very well be the handle for that old Curt vise. And this vise handle, this looks like maybe that handle that I found before. Here we go. Winner chicken dinner. Just gonna replace that pin. And this, I already checked, this fits that small vise that's either a Palmgren or an import. And I just checked, this handle does in fact fit the Curt vise. All right, this is going to conclude episode number 5, and I hope you come back and see what I got in store for episode number 6.